All right, let's talk about lesson planning. So there was a time in my life, and maybe there's a time in every youth pastor's life, where literally they get to the office Monday and they're like, what am I going to talk about Wednesday? And quickly you learn, man, you're going to burn yourself out. You're not going to be able to do an effective way of building the students up spiritually. And inevitably, when you do that, you find yourself repeating certain thoughts and themes often. So like if you do it every Monday, I'm gonna figure out what I'm talking about Wednesday, you might be talking about jealousy or cursing every other week. And so how do you plan out, like when do you start looking at your fall schedule and saying, these are the events I'm gonna talk about, if I have to purchase curriculum, I have to write my own stuff, how do you evaluate what you're gonna talk about that semester?
Well, first thing, if I'm showing up Monday, just planning that kind of stuff, I need to preach on time management. Because that's the big thing. It's a big pet peeve of mine. A lot of times the whole busyness aspect and the whole wearing busyness as a badge for soccer moms in the United States. I mean, I could just really go off on that. But the thing is, because of planning, the thing is, you need to always be ready to write down thoughts and ideas for different things, because it always does. With me anyway, it's never just in the office when I'm at my desk. The other day, I was listening to a new hip hop artist, new to me, NF. Motivated, that song Motivated.
Yeah, it's good.
Listened to it about 3 different times in a row and immediately put together a whole series on Motivated. Wow. I mean, what does it take? And now, granted, some of you guys will Jesus juke me and say, well, I get all that stuff from the Bible. Well, I understand that. But, God is a creative God. And so when planning that stuff, I like to work. I had a wise professor in college that did the old way. Now it's all tech. But, dated myself here. He used clipboards. And he had one clipboard for each week of the month. And so, rather than get stale, he would say, all right, this one's 4 weeks out, this one's 3 weeks out, this is 2 weeks out. So you'd spend a certain amount of time during the week on, 1 week out, because that's mission critical. That's coming up pretty soon. But then, you might spend, here's an illustration. I'm using this movie clip for 4 weeks out and different things like that. And then it gets into the point where it's like breathing. And you get to where it's less stressful. It's less stressful on your home life, on your wife. I got to crash. It's kind of like that old mentality that you had when you crashed before a test in college or whatever. But in putting something together like that, it's just about where you want to go. And I said this earlier in a conversation with Frank. A lot of times I'll look at people's outlines, especially if I'm coaching them up on some stuff, and I see 3 different points. Well, that's 3 different weeks. That's a 3-week series that they've got. And so that, what's the rush? Yeah. What's the rush? Why can't, if it's not worth digging into and spending a lot of time with that teaching? Yeah. You might, and there's been times that I'll be up here and we didn't get through, I didn't feel good about where it finished, and say, you know what? Next week we're coming back and we're going to visit integrity again. Because we didn't get through that whole story or plot line. But that's a good deal. It's time management. Find out what works for you to help you manage your time better. With the way I like to go, I'm a big pie-in-the-sky dreamer kind of guy. And so I had to surround myself with people that held me accountable to my time. Otherwise, I have to really slow down and walk real slowly to make sure I don't forget something. Yeah, I know Andy Stanley talks about having one point and hitting it from every single angle. And I think in terms of youth ministry, that's a really good way to look at youth ministry and preach like that, because oftentimes if you have like a 3 or 4 point, 5 point message, students are going to be like, I got one of them. I got the last point, not all the other ones. And what allows you with series is to do just that. My students, they've figured me out enough to where I know first thing I'm going to do is it's like a bus. I've heard this illustration before. It says it's a bus. Okay, they're all going to get on the bus. But I tell them within the first minute and a half, where the bus is going, how we're going to get there, and some of the things, so that they have kind of the setup, and then we get to the point, and then what's the takeaway from it? And so when talking about these series, I'll say, hey, all right, you know what? We started this right now. We're in about a 6 week series on basics. We took the summer to cover basic stuff. Had some of my other youth pastor guys that are on staff with me that work with me cover some of the things that they like: Holy Spirit, Bible study, and worship, and some of the basics of our faith. And I say, all right, Jake spoke about this last week. What was it? And so they know getting in, they're going to have a pop quiz right off the bat, and that helps with retention. But otherwise, breaking it down, simple.
That's good. That's good. And then, as far as planning my fall, one thing I do is where I'll look at the fall calendar with a school calendar in front of me, look at all the Wednesday nights, make sure at least I know where the Wednesday nights are, and then one thing I do is I'll just say, where's the Lord leading me this semester? You know what I'm saying? There's some things that I do every fall. So in the fall, I'll do a discussion about dating and relationships at least once that semester, and then in the spring we'll do a series about movies where we'll talk about how movies relate with culture. And so there's always 1 month kind of given to that. I always try to do one book of the Bible and kind of go over it in a 4-week series. But I just literally sit down. I start thinking about what are the things that Lord has taught me over the summer, over the spring, where are my kids at spiritually, and start diving into those different things. So I might have a month of a bunch of different one-offs where I'll do different things. There might be a month where I'll do the book of Esther or something like that. Or I haven't done this yet since I've been here, but there might be a time where I'll do an 8-week series where I'll spend 2 months on the subject. It just kind of depends on those things.
And you need to be willing to be flexible, because there might be, for instance, the Supreme Court thing. A hot topic situation where you might have to push some things back. And again, I apologize because there's so many things that go into planning ahead. You mentioned getting away. Get away with your staff. Get away with your volunteers. Get away with yourself. If it's just you and your wife and you've got 7 students and you're hanging out and you're loving on them, then get away and plan and think and pray over what's going on and what direction you want to do. I mean, you'll be refreshed. You'll have some great ideas. I always have to have my phone or a pad of paper around, because I wake up at 2:30 in the morning and ooh, and if I don't write it down, it's gone.
I'm going to Oklahoma for a weekend, and that weekend I'm speaking in the evening at this little summer camp, but in the mornings I'm focusing on just getting by myself with a Mountain Dew and writing down stuff for the fall. So.